Every year, Cambodia ships billions of dollars worth of textiles, footwear, agricultural products, and increasingly sophisticated manufactured goods to buyers across the globe. Yet behind those export figures lies a persistent logistical reality. Moving freight out of the country has never been easy. A loaded container truck departing Phnom Penh rarely maintains momentum for long. Within minutes of leaving the capital, it encounters congested arterial roads, unpredictable intersections, and urban corridors never engineered for heavy commercial traffic. The vehicle crawls through provincial towns, navigates uneven pavement, and inches toward the eastern frontier. And that is only the first leg of the journey. Once the truck finally approaches the border, it still must cross into Vietnam, merge onto that country's highway network, and push onward to maritime terminals clustered around Ho Chi Minh City before its cargo can ever board an ocean-going vessel. Each hour added to that route compounds fuel consumption, accelerates vehicle depreciation, strains driver schedules, and disrupts delivery windows. For an economy actively trying to scale its manufacturing sector and attract higher value foreign investment, those cumulative delays are not mere inconveniences. They are structural costs that directly erode competitiveness. For over a decade, this transportation bottleneck has stood as Cambodia's most tangible economic constraint. The country does not lack a willing workforce. It does not lack international demand for its exports. What it has lacked is a high-capacity, predictable corridor capable of moving freight at scale without constant friction. That gap is now being addressed by an infrastructure initiative that appears straightforward on paper, but carries profound economic and strategic weight underneath. At the center of this transformation is the Phnom Penh-Bavet Expressway, a controlled-access highway engineered to fundamentally alter how goods traverse Cambodia and link into regional trade arteries. Stretching approximately 135 kilometers from the capital to the Bavet border crossing, the expressway is designed as a four-lane divided highway with 2 lanes in each direction and reserved right-of-way for future expansion should traffic volumes outpace initial projections. Groundbreaking took place on June 7, 2023, and construction is tracking toward a targeted operational opening in 2027. The estimated investment falls between $1.6 and $1.7 billion, positioning it among the most significant transport infrastructure commitments Cambodia has seen in recent memory. But the project's true value cannot be measured in kilometers or dollars alone. It lies in what the road intentionally connects, how it eliminates historical points of delay, and the broader trade ecosystem it plugs into. The alignment is deliberately strategic. Rather than carving through undeveloped territory, the corridor follows one of Cambodia's most heavily utilized commercial routes, linking the economic heart of the country directly to its busiest eastern checkpoint. Once freight crosses at Bavet, it immediately integrates with Vietnam's mature expressway network, flowing southward toward deep-water terminals near Ho Chi Minh City that already handle millions of 20-foot equivalent units annually. This connection is critical because Vietnam has spent years consolidating port infrastructure, streamlining customs procedures, and establishing shipping alliances that place it firmly within global supply chains. Cambodia, by contrast, has historically faced higher shipping costs, longer transit times, and limited direct maritime capacity. Instead of attempting to replicate Vietnam's logistics ecosystem from the ground up, the expressway offers a pragmatic alternative. It bridges Cambodia into a system that already functions efficiently, allowing Cambodian exporters to leverage existing regional capacity while their own port and rail networks continue to develop.
Engineering a highway of this scale might seem routine, but the geography between Phnom Penh and Bavet introduces complications that routinely slow large-scale civil works. Eastern Cambodia is predominantly low-lying, and while the terrain appears deceptively flat, it sits atop alluvial soils that soften dramatically during the monsoon season. When heavy rainfall arrives, the water table rises, subgrade stability deteriorates, and heavy machinery struggles to maintain traction or precision. Before crews can even begin laying pavement, they must solve for ground conditions. In multiple segments, engineers are constructing elevated viaducts and reinforced embankments to keep the road surface safely above seasonal flood levels. These raised sections allow floodwaters to channel beneath the corridor without undermining the foundation. Elsewhere, comprehensive drainage networks, box culverts, and permeable shoulder designs are being integrated to manage runoff and prevent long-term saturation damage.
Soil stabilization remains one of the most time-intensive phases of the build. Soft clay and loose sediment cannot safely bear repeated loads from fully laden freight trucks without settling or cracking. To counter this, construction teams are applying layered compaction techniques, mixing stabilizing agents, and installing geotextile membranes to distribute weight evenly. Each stratum must cure and settle before the next can be applied, making patience a structural requirement rather than a scheduling luxury. Simultaneously, the project is being executed across multiple work fronts. Rather than progressing linearly from one end to the other, separate crews are conducting earth moving, bridge erection, subgrade preparation, and asphalt paving in parallel. This parallelized approach compresses the overall timeline, but demands rigorous project coordination, material logistics, and quality control. Weather remains an unavoidable variable. During peak rainy periods, certain activities must pause entirely, forcing supervisors to recalibrate sequences and protect unfinished sections from water damage. The result is a phased, adaptive build, where progress accelerates or decelerates based on terrain readiness, seasonal windows, and supply chain reliability. Given the engineering complexity and financial scale, a natural question emerges. Why is Chinese capital and construction expertise driving this initiative so aggressively? The answer lies in the project's financing structure and its alignment with broader regional strategy. The expressway is being developed under a build, operate, transfer framework, typically facilitated by Chinese state-linked enterprises. Under this model, the concessionaire funds the construction, manages the highway for a predetermined period, collects toll revenue to recoup investment and generate returns, and ultimately transfers full ownership back to the Cambodian government. This is not a simple construction contract. It is a long-term infrastructure investment with built-in revenue mechanisms. It also fits neatly into China's wider Belt and Road Initiative footprint across Southeast Asia, which emphasizes physical connectivity as a catalyst for trade expansion, supply chain integration, and economic interdependence. The underlying logic is straightforward. Improve transport efficiency, and trade volumes naturally follow. When freight moves faster and more predictably, manufacturers can reduce inventory buffers, commit to tighter production schedules, and negotiate more favorable contracts with international buyers. Cambodia gains access to modern infrastructure that would likely take decades to finance and execute using domestic revenue alone. China, in turn, strengthens its position in regional logistics networks, expands market access for its engineering and materials sectors, and deepens economic ties with a strategically located Southeast Asian economy. Yet this model inevitably invites scrutiny. Critics point to questions surrounding toll pricing transparency, long-term revenue repatriation, and the degree of external influence over critical national infrastructure. Supporters counter that without foreign direct investment structured around concession agreements, projects of this magnitude would remain theoretical, leaving Cambodia's export sector stranded in outdated transport conditions. The reality is neither purely advantageous nor entirely precarious. It is a pragmatic exchange, accelerated development in return for deeper integration into a China-centered economic architecture. If the expressway performs as projected, its impact will ripple far beyond reduced transit times. Consider the structural shift it enables within Cambodia's economy. The country has historically depended on garment manufacturing, agriculture, and light assembly, sectors that operate on thin margins and rely heavily on export velocity. When freight corridors improve, the entire commercial equation recalibrates. Factories can adopt leaner inventory models, logistics providers can offer guaranteed delivery windows, and global procurement managers can view Cambodia as a reliable link in multi-country supply chains. That is precisely how economies climb the value ladder, by replacing unpredictability with consistency. Infrastructure also reshapes economic geography. Roads do not merely move goods, they redirect capital. Land parcels adjacent to the Phnom Penh-Bavet corridor are already experiencing valuation shifts as developers anticipate demand for warehousing, cross-docking facilities, and light industrial parks. Commercial zones that once operated in isolation will now sit directly alongside a high-speed freight artery, making them viable for investors seeking proximity to both domestic markets and international gateways. This pattern is well documented in neighboring economies. When Vietnam expanded its expressway network, manufacturing clusters naturally coalesced along those routes, drawing foreign capital, upgrading local labor skills, and embedding provincial economies into global production networks. Cambodia now possesses the physical foundation to replicate that trajectory, provided supporting policies keep pace. A highway alone cannot generate sustained growth. It requires complementary systems to unlock its full potential. Border processing must be digitized and synchronized to prevent
New bottlenecks at customs checkpoints. Regulatory frameworks need to remain stable, transparent, and aligned with international trade standards. Workforce development programs must cultivate technicians, logistics managers, and supply chain analysts who can operate modern distribution networks. Multimodal connectivity must continue expanding, linking the expressway to rail upgrades, port expansions, and inland dry terminals. Without these elements, even the most efficiently engineered corridor will operate below capacity. Cambodia has already begun laying the groundwork, with parallel initiatives connecting Phnom Penh to Sihanoukville, upgrading rail alignments, and modernizing customs infrastructure. The expressway is not an endpoint. It is a central node in an emerging logistics matrix. When multiple corridors intersect and function cohesively, a country's freight system transitions from fragmented to integrated. That shift reduces dependency on single routes, diversifies export pathways, and builds resilience against localized disruptions. Over the next decade, if network expansion continues at a steady pace, Cambodia's position in regional trade could evolve from peripheral participant to active connector. The expressway, in that sense, is an early catalyst rather than a final destination. It demonstrates how targeted infrastructure can compress development timelines, attract complementary investment, and elevate a nation's role in cross-border commerce.
The broader implication extends well beyond Cambodia's borders. As China continues funding transport corridors, port modernizations, and energy grids across Southeast Asia, the region's trade architecture is quietly being rewired. Supply chains are no longer planned solely around geographic proximity. They are increasingly designed around engineered connectivity. Nations that integrate smoothly into these networks gain faster access to capital, technology, and global markets. Those that remain disconnected risk marginalization, regardless of their natural resources or labor availability. The Phnom Penh-Bavet Expressway is a tangible example of how infrastructure decisions today will shape trade flows tomorrow. It raises a larger question about regional economic alignment. If China continues weaving these transport links across Southeast Asia, will it fundamentally redefine how the entire region produces, moves, and exports goods to the rest of the world? If you have insights on how infrastructure investment, regional connectivity, or foreign financing models are reshaping Southeast Asian trade, share your perspective in the comments below.